Hi everyone, and welcome back to Salvage Performance. Today we are going to remove the gauge cluster. There may be many reasons why you need to replace your gauge cluster or remove it. Sometimes the bulbs back here on the gauge cluster burn out and you just need to replace those, or if you're looking to do something custom, such as different gauge cluster faces and stuff. Either way, today I'm going to show you how to remove it. Now to begin with, you want to remove this panel here. So we need to go under here and remove that screw or bolt. And then I believe the rest of them are clips. Okay, now once you got this down, you want to disconnect these three connectors, this OBD2 port, this hose, and the clip. And this is probably the most difficult one. Mine's already removed from the housing, or the bracket, but you're going to want to remove your hood latch cable. Okay, and now that you have that panel out of the way, we have a few screws to remove. We have a Phillips here, we have one on the side right there, and underneath this, now removing your headlight switch and your wiper switch is going to give you access to the two screws that are behind them. So let's go ahead and take those out. They're really simple. They just have a few tabs right here. So pry that one forward. And then underneath there is another tab right here. So you just pinch those two together and it slides right up. On the other side, you do the same thing, but there is a wire connected to it. So let's go ahead and pry the top part, get the bottom. Might need two hands for this. Nope, there it goes. I'm just gonna wiggle it out, and it has a connector right back here. Just disconnect and it'll fall right out. Now that we have our switch out, we're going to go back down here to the bottom, and there's a bolt right there. I believe that's a 10mm, and one on this side. There's not that one, there's that one right there. We just need to unbolt those two things, and once we unbolt those, the gauge cluster and this housing are going to slide forward, and there's clips on the back that we're going to have to disconnect. My mistake, there was actually 4 bolts that you have to undo. One that was there, one that was up here, right next to the ignition. It's really hard to see. That one right there. Same with on this side. That bolt that was right there. The other one, which is right there. Now that we have those 4 disconnected, you can see how easily this just moves forward. Now before removing it, there's a clip right here that controls your headlights, or sorry, your side view mirrors. You can disconnect it here before removing it, makes it a little bit easier. Next we have to remove this screw and this one here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the key in the ignition so the steering wheel doesn't lock up on me. I can turn turn it sideways, fit my screwdriver through the front here. Now the other side. Move the key. I need to disconnect this switch. Now it's disconnected. Can go ahead and pull this out. The next step is going to be reaching behind the gauge cluster and removing the clips. Behind the gauge cluster, you're going to have clip on this side here, and if you didn't disconnect it from the bottom, you'll have to remove this one too. I recommend removing this clip while it's still in the car. Gives you a little bit more room to pull on the gauge cluster. You're not going to have a lot of room because that harness is pretty tight and you have the windshield in your way, so the best thing to do is just look from the outside of your windshield. And just work by the outside here and disconnect the harness. Alright, now that the harness is disconnected from the gauge cluster, you can move this forward. Make sure that you are on the outside right here, and right there, and just pull forward. Alright, there we go. We have our gauge cluster out, your harnesses, your plugs. So it's at this time that you'd want to go behind the gauge cluster and replace the bulbs if you need to do that, or remove the gauge cluster from the housing here and replace the faces if you're trying to do something custom. For me, I had to remove this for a different reason. My ignition switch right here, though I had the key, ever since I bought the car, it would periodically lock itself out. Not entirely. But what I mean by lock itself out is Nissan has a system called NATS, which is a security system. It makes it to where if somebody is trying to use a key, even if it goes into the ignition and turns it to the start position, if it doesn't have the chip to recognize it, the chip that's synced with the computer and this module here, it will lock itself out. So if you use it more than, I believe, 5 times, if you try to start it more than 5 times, it goes into a lock mode. That lock mode makes it to where you cannot start your car. So there is a sequence to where you can temporarily take it out of lock mode. That's something entirely different that I don't want to deal with, especially if I have this on the track and I spin out on the track and I can't start my car. It takes a good maybe 3 to 5 minutes, depending on if it works the first time or not, to get your car started. I have a donor car in the backyard that it has a good ignition switch and computer system, and it's all synced together. So instead of me going to Nissan at this time, I'm just going to see if I can swap this unit out, being the entire ignition system, which is it reaches back here and it goes across the steering column. I'm going to see if I can swap that out and use the key from that car along with the ECU from that car, and see if it will work. If it does, that's great, because it's going to save me at least $100 having to go to Nissan, purchase their key, and have it synced up to the car. So if you're interested in seeing something like that, please subscribe. Again, thanks for watching. I hope you got some good information from this. See you next time.